Hello everyone, and welcome back to the tutorial for Sid Meier's Civilization 5. Last time we talked mostly about the setup for the game, as well as the first couple of turns. This time we're going to be going on just from there, basically. So, there's a city-state here, we know that. If we move toward the city-state, we will meet him, and we will get gold. So the question is, do we get more gold if we meet him first? So the question is, do we move up here and try to meet the city-state before anyone else, or do we go for the ruin? And I'm thinking the ruin, probably, because there could be someone else over here, we don't know. So I'm going to move there. And it turns out there wasn't anyone here. So, and I got gold anyway, so that's actually perfectly fine. I don't really want to move this scout adjacent to the barbarians, because then he'll just get killed, so I'm actually going to kind of skirt the edge here, like that. I want to get this ruin. And then again, I'm going to scout close to him. He actually doesn't have that great of a location, although he does have a lot of plains around him. He just built a scout. That's perfectly fine. It's useful to kind of watch out and see, like if this guy had a settler standing here, and I knew he was moving up toward the area that I wanted to settle, then it might be worth just, taking a settler. Because, I mean, if he's got him there undefended, there's really no point in not. Yeah, there's a lot of open plains here. I can actually grab this ruin here. So that gave us the culture for a social policy. Now this is actually a fairly interesting little tip. If I go to next turn, I will get the little pop-up that says you can adopt a social policy. Because if you look here, I have 21 of 15. But if I just click here, I can actually adopt that policy right now. And what that means, say if I adopt a tradition, that gives you 3 culture per turn. If I waited until next turn to adopt it, I'd be losing out on the 3 culture that I would get this turn. So it's a small little thing, but it's worth getting. I'm going to get tradition. Now the reason is, I should probably have explained that, but piety, don't go piety first. It's just not very good. Same with honor. They're okay if you get them later on, but as right off the bat, right at the start of the game, the bonuses are not going to be very useful to you. So the real question is between tradition and liberty. And there are times where liberty is okay, but my advice is that 90% of the time you're going to want to go tradition instead, because the tradition is just easier to play. I mean, technically speaking, you can get more out of liberty. You can get more science, you can get more cities, you can get more production, more culture, but it's just more difficult to play this way. So if you're newer to the game, or if you just don't feel like taking on that kind of challenge, you should go tradition. In addition, liberty requires that you have a lot of space around you. If you don't have a lot of space, if you're, huddled on a peninsula, or if you're trapped in a corner, then again, you're going to want to go tradition. If you have tons of space to put like 10 or 15 cities, that's when liberty starts to become viable. But for our intents and purposes, we're just going to go with tradition right off the start, because it's usually the safer bet to go tradition. You can do better with liberty if you play it right, but the safe bet is just go tradition. Alright, so I'm going to move this guy up, see if I can't meet that city-state. I actually can't. And wait. Finish this monument next turn, and then probably start on a shrine. A shrine is a fairly good thing to build. And when you're building a shrine, a good thing to start thinking about is what pantheon do you actually want. Now for this, I'm thinking there is one called Sun God, which gives you +1 food for all wheat, bananas, and citrus. So that would be 1, 2, 3. That will be 3 food in the capital. And that 3 food will be on 3 tiles that I'm probably already going to be working anyway. The only problem is that that is not going to give me any more faith. Really what you want in a pantheon is you want something that will give you faith to make it easier for you to found a full-blown religion. So, but I'm still thinking that that's probably the better option, to get the 3 food over the... Because there doesn't seem to be any real resources here that would give me faith. If I had, like, a bunch of salt and copper, for example, then there's a pantheon that gives you faith from worked salt, copper, and iron, Earth Mother. And that would have been a great one to get, but I don't have that. So, if you don't have lands that will give you the faith you need, then food is probably the second best thing to get. So that's probably the pantheon I'm going to be going for. And in fact, I just made a religious city-state, which gave me enough faith to found a pantheon next turn. The faith doesn't work like the culture. You can't click here and found a pantheon. So it says I can found a pantheon, but I actually do have to wait until next turn. So I'm going to move up to here, try to get that ruined. And then continue to skirt around here, just to kind of scout out. Alright, so it bears mentioning now that if you're playing multiplayer, you want to think about your pantheon before the choice comes up, so that basically when you're in multiplayer and someone else gets their pantheon available on the same turn as you, and they pick their pantheon before you, then you can't pick pantheon. You have to wait until you get enough faith to get one again, because the faith cost for founding a pantheon goes up with each pantheon that's been founded. So if someone else found another pantheon before you, even if it's on the same turn, you have to wait. So you want to just quickly go in here and get the one that you want as quickly as possible. And single player doesn't actually matter. Looking through here, again, there doesn't seem to be anything that would really be useful to me except for Sun God here. So that would be 3 food. So that's going to... I think that's what I'm going to end up doing. Yeah, see, these are 3 food tiles now. This one especially is going to be good because I put a farm on it, that's +1. And then civil service adds +1 food to farms next to rivers. So that's going to be 5 food in that tile, which is actually fairly good. This one too. So, Vatican City does not like me standing here, so I'm going to move out. And then grab this. So we just got writing from that ruin. Writing is actually, unless you're playing as Babylon, writing's not a huge priority to get, because the Great Library is kind of a trap. The opportunity cost of building the Great Library is so high. Like, if you're building the Great Library, you're not building settlers. You're not building, water mills. You're not building shrines. You're not building anything else in this area. You're gambling everything on the Great Library. And the problem with that is that, yes, it gives you a free tech. Yes, it gives you some extra science. But the opportunity cost of what you're missing by going for that, rather than just going kind of a standard build, is just so high that it's almost never worth going for. Unless maybe you're Babylon, then the Great Scientist point would actually be fairly useful because they generate scientists faster. But the vast majority of the time, the Great Library is not something that's incredibly great. It's a good wonder if you can get it. It's one of the best wonders in the game. But the problem is that the opportunity cost is just so ridiculously high, it's almost never worth building. Now, the normal library is something that you want to build in every city. The problem is it's based on population. It gives you 1 science for each 2 population in your city. We only have 2 populations, so building a library now would only give us 1 science. So, it's not even really worth it at this point to build the library, because it costs 1 gold per turn maintenance, and we've only got 1 gold per turn. And if you go negative gold per turn, you start losing science. So at this point, building a library is not actually going to help us. When we get a bigger city, yes, it definitely will, but at the moment, no. So see, we also found Old Faithful here. Old Faithful is an actual wonder. These are fairly good tiles, to be honest. There are a couple crap ones. Old Faithful is not the best. 2 science, 3 happiness. Yeah, I mean, it's alright. It's less than a luxury resource that you don't have. I mean, 2 science isn't all that much. Old Faithful is not the greatest wonder. I'd be a lot more excited about this if this was something like Victoria. But the Old Faithful is just not that great of a wonder. So it would appear that we have met Korea. They're there. So I'm guessing they're off in this direction. Now, at this point we have a choice between aristocracy and oligarchy. And at first glance it's going to seem like aristocracy is the better one. It gives you production with wonders and happiness. But it's almost always better, unless you're building a wonder right this second, to go with oligarchy, because it will unlock legalism and landed elite and monarchy, which are, these 2 down here are really the reason that you pick tradition. So I'm going to go with that and meet another city-state. Alright, so then this would be the Shoshone. So now that we know that there's another player here, this all of a sudden becomes a contested area that we're going to want a city. And generally you want 4, as a rule you want to have at least 4 cities. So what I'm thinking is that there's one city location up here. One here, definitely. Maybe one over here. That will bring us up to 4 cities. So, the question is, do we settle here first or here first? And I'm thinking here. So, we're going to grow again next turn. Yep. And then, we don't have anywhere 2 food tiles, although, actually, we could actually just buy out to this one. This is one of the benefits of America, is you can just buy out to the tiles you want and then work them immediately. Other civs can't really do that quite as well. So if I wasn't America, what I would probably do is be working these horses until my borders naturally expanded out to the wheat. But because I'm America, I can just buy that and be perfectly fine with that. Right, so it looks like he's kind of boxed in on the edge of the continent too, which is a problem, because he's going to want to expand toward me. Okay, now, we've grown to 3 population. We're actually going to grow again in 3 turns, so is it worth getting to 4 population and then building a settler, or building a settler immediately? Normally, it would be worth building a settler immediately, because you're not going to grow to 4 population very quickly, but in our situation, we've got the 3 wheat, all of which have the sun god bonus on them. So I'm thinking we actually grow first. And in the meantime, I'm thinking we build a worker. Because the worker will help us improve the tiles around our city. And that's almost always a good thing. So I'm thinking we build a worker next. So the worker will be done in 5 turns. That is not terrible. I really want to kind of see this guy's capital. He looks like he's got a lot of resources here, which is kind of scary. If you see an enemy capital with a lot of resources, city-state. If you see an enemy capital with a lot of resources, it's useful to kind of be worried about it, because the more stuff they have around their capital, the more of a threat they're going to be. Okay. I should actually mention that if you hit the F9 key, it brings up this, the demographics, which shows you who's ahead in different things. Now, some of these statistics are more useful than others. For example, crop yield, that's basically just the amount of food you're generating. That's not that useful. But population is. The person with the most population is almost always going to be the first place person, because food equates to food. The higher food you have, the more people you have. The more people you have, the more tiles you can work. The more tiles you can work, the more science, the more production, the more gold you have. So higher population is almost always better if you have the happiness to support it. So that's a good one to keep in mind. Manufactured goods, that's production. The first in production is going to be kind of a scary person to go up against, because they're going to be able to outproduce you. So that's something you want to keep in mind. G&P, land, approval, they're not as useful. Soldiers, if the person next to you is highest on soldiers, by a significant margin especially, then it's a good time to kind of build up a military, to kind of be scared of them, because especially if they're your only neighbor, they're probably going to try and attack you. And then literacy is whoever is ahead on science. At this point, it doesn't matter, because as you can see, the lowest is 0%. 0% basically means you have yet to research writing. Very few people at this point in the game would have researched writing. The only reason I have writing is because I got it from a ruin, and that's why I'm ahead on literacy. So at this point in the game, that statistic is fairly meaningless, but later on, when you get into like the classical and medieval era and you're guaranteed that everyone has writing, then it becomes a lot more useful to kind of gauge where you are in terms of technology in relation to everyone else. He wants an embassy, that is fine. That will reveal his capital to us. He's actually got a fairly nice area. And Korea's an overpowered civ, so if I was an actual player rather than an AI, I would be extremely scared of that. So our city grew again. At this point, I don't really want the city to grow anymore, because I don't have the happiness to support it. So I'm actually going to stop working this 1 food 2 production and just do the production. That'll slow down the growth, and I'm doing that intentionally to try to conserve my happiness. Because obviously, the more I conserve my happiness, the more quickly I can settle my new city. Alright, so I'm going to get legalism. That will give me a free culture building. Most often, legalism is going to be a free monument in your first 4 cities. Because most of the time, especially if you get a culture ruin early, you're not going to have built a monument. So when you get this, you're going to get one for free. But we built a monument. So what this is actually going to do is when we research drama and poetry, and we get access to build the amphitheater, we will get an amphitheater for free in our capital. Which isn't terrible. And amphitheaters aren't particularly useful. He has a lot of forest. Should have been the Iroquois for once. Alright. So we just got another population from our ruin. Which is interesting. Again, I'm going to try to slow down my growth as much as possible. And I'm actually going to build a settler. Now this is worth mentioning. If you are building a settler, your city cannot starve. So what I can do is I can actually buy a couple hills, and I can take people off of this tile. See, right now, this is 5 turns. I can take them off of these tiles and set them on these tiles. That didn't actually make a difference. I could set him on the horses. That actually didn't make a difference either. And the reason that didn't make a difference is because these tiles produce 3 food. Now, I'm not sure of the exact conversion rate, but when you're producing a settler, the food you produce is converted to production toward the settler. Now, your city cannot starve while building a settler, so working nothing but these production tiles and not working the food tiles actually isn't going to do any harm to us. The only thing is that if you're doing this, you have to remember to put your food tiles back on after you've built the settler, otherwise your city will starve. So that's just something you have to keep in mind. Now, I would love to improve this wine here, but I'm worried that there might be a barbarian somewhere over here, so I'm actually going to go for the horses first, while I bring my warrior back. In fact, it might be worth bringing back this archer too. I've explored enough of the map that I've got city locations for 4 cities. I think I'm fairly comfortable starting to bring my units back. Alright, so we've got the technologies now to improve these 2 resources. Now it's worth looking at the areas you're going to be settling in to see what you need to improve those resources. So up here we've got sugar, but that sugar's on a marsh. In order to clear a marsh, you need masonry. Say clear marsh. Now here we have spices, but that spices is on a forest. To clear a forest, you need mining. And then we've got pearls over here, which require sailing. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to go for masonry, and then I'm going to get sailing. Oh, masonry, then sailing. And that will give me the techs I need to improve all my luxuries. Another city-state up here as well as a barbarian encampment. That's fine. And you can build a pasture. I might leave this scout up here to kind of watch out to see if he ever sends a settler down here. Alright. It doesn't look like he is. So I should be able to settle my city before he can take the spot. I'm probably going to bring this warrior and this archer together here and try to clear these barbarian camps out, because they're being a little bit of a nuisance, and they're going to make it more difficult for me to settle my city where I want to settle it, which I haven't actually decided yet. Now I'm thinking here on this hill, because it'll be adjacent to the lake, which will allow it to build gardens. Now lakes function kind of like rivers in the sense that putting farms along the edge of them will give you bonus food after you've researched civil service. So putting farms all around here and all around here and all around here will actually give this area quite a bit of food. So I'm thinking here on this hill to get, again, the bonus production, the extra defense in case he tries to attack. It'll be in range of the bananas here and the bananas here. We'll have the wine. The only thing is it will not actually be within working range of the sugar, which is the only foreseeable problem. And to fix that, I might actually move it off the hill, 1 tile later. I will lose the bonus production and the bonus defensibility. I'll still be next to a lake. I'll be within range of the marsh. I'll actually get another banana. I think that's actually the better option. There, settle right here. Well, our settler is done, and I'm going to have to put a cut here. Next time we will settle our city and start finding out where we're going to put our other two cities. So, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.